Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 203, and what an appropriate number that is for our discussion today, which is going to be all about everything Star Wars and Lucasfilm coming out of D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event 2024, which just took place this past weekend at the Anaheim Convention Center right here in Southern California. And for that discussion, I have invited on the show for the very first time a fellow theme park journalist and fellow Star Wars fan. Her name is Brooke Geiger McDonald, and I think you can find her writings on Travel Pulse. Brooke, where else can people find your stuff?
Yeah. Hi, thanks for having
Hi.
me.
Yes, absolutely.
I am a freelancer, so kind of a little bit of all over the place. The best way to keep track of what I'm doing is usually just via Instagram, Twitter, and Threads, all at Brooke G McDonald.
Excellent. Hi, Brooke. Thank you again for coming on the show. I should have said that first. But how are you, by the way? How have you recovered from this past weekend? It's a crazy, crazy event for everyone.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it has always been a crazy nonstop weekend, but this was next level, wasn't it?
Yes.
Having those Honda Center evening panels really meant it was morning till night, and then kind of, digesting all of that Honda Center information every night afterwards meant it was practically around the clock. So I'm good. I am starting to catch up on sleep.
Yeah.
And yeah, but just now starting to get there. How about you?
Excellent. Yes, the same here. My wife and I think, have finally kind of caught up, recovered a little bit from the event. We've both been sleeping a lot and just kind of trying to catch our breaths. And I spent a little bit of today kind of reviewing all of this news, especially the Star Wars stuff, so we could talk about it. I do want to mention we are live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. If you would like to watch along and comment along, we would be happy to address any questions or concerns you may have, such as our friends from Skywalking Through Neverland, who said they are excited to hear this discussion with both of us. Thank you for tuning in. And then I'm not going to attempt to read your name. I'm sorry. Soza's the leader says greetings from Brooklyn, New York. So hi, hello, and thank you for tuning in. Let's do something called the 5 Star Wars questions. Brooke, since this is your first time on Who's the Bossk, you are legally required to address these 5 Star Wars questions. This will give us kind of a base level understanding of your Star Wars fandom. How are you feeling? You ready for this?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. Number 1 of the 5 Star Wars questions. What is your earliest Star Wars memory?
Gosh. So I grew up, a kid of the 80s. And so definitely my earliest memories were really of cousins and uncle who were diehard. I had boy cousins who were a little bit older than me who had all the action figures, all of the everything. And so I kind of absorbed it that way. But I also feel like I have like a second round of earliest Star Wars memories, which were definitely more and then kind of, like the prequel era was like like another phase. And then I really,
Yeah.
really got back, more into it than ever, really, as Star Wars was more and more in the theme parks, and
Yeah.
through my own kids, watching every show from Lego, to everything animated, everything that they could, and then they now of course they've always watched everything. But I've really kind of like aged through it at a couple different phases in my life, I think, based on the family around me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear from another fellow fan who's been into it their whole lives, of course. And number 2 of the 5 Star Wars questions, which do you consider your current favorite Star Wars movie or TV show, and why?
Oh gosh. So, my favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith, I would say for sure. And then originals, of course, it would probably be Empire. And but I really love I also really love Rogue One, and for shows, it's kind. I have the same sort of reasoning for why I have my favorites. I love Andor, and I think the reason that Revenge of the Sith I love so much is I just really like the way stakes are established on
Yeah,
screen in all of those in such an impactful way. Of course, I love the fun, playful, silly, hokey Star Wars, but for those of us who really live it and love it so much, I really appreciate when the gravity of what's
yeah,
happening in these situations is really put on the screen. And I think, those that I've named really, really do that. I mean, the eulogy scene in Andor and Nemec's manifesto in those moments, like, I mean, there's just nothing like it. And it just
right.
applies to real life so well too.
Yeah.
Um, so
I, I always think about kids growing up on the prequels because I was of the kind of previous generation. But if you were a kid growing up and you saw, let's say you saw Phantom Menace at age 5, then it was Attack of the Clones at 8, and then you get to age 11 and Revenge of the Sith comes out and Anakin Skywalker like becomes Darth Vader. Like, and watching that in real time, it must have been devastating for somebody of that age, kind of growing up on those movies. But yeah, great picks and great reasons why. Number 3, who is your favorite Star Wars character and why?
Oh, it's Anakin, of course,
Okay.
has to be Anakin slash, Darth Vader. Also, I
Yeah.
just, I love a flawed character. We
Yeah.
love a good redemption story. Also he's just the best Jedi, the best pilot, the best everything. So, how can you not? And I love Clone Wars.
Okay.
So I love that Anakin too. I love animated Anakin. I loved the way we got sort of. I love the way Ahsoka merged those two. To see
Yeah.
animated Anakin live action, to see Hayden in that costume and everything, and then just kind of
Right.
like allow them to be the same person in a way was just such a cool thing for those of us who love both.
Yes, I love the way that the animated Star Wars universes are kind of colliding with the live action ones now, thanks to, Dave Filoni kind of graduating into doing his own live action stuff. Let's get into number 4 of the 5 Star Wars questions. If you happen to live in the fictional Star Wars universe, where do you think you would fit in? What faction would you belong to? And the choices I always list off are the Jedi Order, the Sith, the Rebel Alliance, the Empire, the Bounty Hunters, the scum and villainy hanging out in the cantina, or anything else you can come up with. What do you think, Brooke? Where would you fit in Star Wars?
Oh, I love hanging out in the cantina and having a good Tonneray, a blue
Yeah,
wine. But and we really got to play around with this. I'm a Galactic Star Cruiser super fan,
yeah,
so that was something where we really got to kind of live that choice. I mean, who doesn't want to be a Jedi? Except I don't. It is a lot of discipline and
right.
structure and rules. So I don't know. I think I would. I think I kind of just like the idea of being force sensitive, but playing by my own rules.
Okay.
Kind of going a little like maybe a force sensitive scoundrel type. Going rogue.
It almost seems like I wonder if Jude Law's character is kind of like that in Skeleton Crew,
Me
right?
too. I can't
Okay.
wait to find out.
And we'll be talking about that a little bit later.
Mm.
But number 5, the fifth and final of the 5 Star Wars questions, is called Impression or Possession. This is where I ask my guests to either do a Star Wars impression or simply tell me about a favorite Star Wars possession they may own. What do you think, Brooke? Which one would you like to choose?
Oh, I cannot do an impression. So you're
Okay.
getting possession.
All
Well,
right.
I mean, I've got a few. Well, I mean, this Ewok
Uh-huh.
is the cool, which came out, from Disney Store last year, is like about the coolest thing I've ever seen. I absolutely adore it.
Is that
I
life
also,
size?
yes, yeah. Should I show him to
Yeah,
you?
sure.
He's,
Yeah.
yeah, he's. Oh my gosh. Yep, here he
Wow.
is.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah.
had not seen that
He
before.
really, yeah, no, he is life size and he's like a plush, like he's kind of huggable. Yeah, no, so that's definitely one of them. And then I don't know, I have a lot of Star Cruiser, souvenir memorabilia, everything. I actually have one of my favorites is just this
Oh,
candle,
yeah.
which is like the scent that was
Yep.
in the atrium, and it's starting to fade, and
Oh no.
yeah, it's gonna be sad when it's gone completely, but
I have the
um
candle as well. I haven't
mhm.
lit it yet. Have you lit yours?
No,
No.
no, no. I keep
We don't
wanting to
dare.
find a way. No, and we have done a few friends and I have done a lot of research trying to identify the scent, and we haven't quite gotten it yet,
Okay.
but we're not giving up.
Skywalking says they have the Ewok too. It's the best for live streaming. And Justin Smith says he got the Star Speeder. I think he's talking about the one
Oh yeah.
at D23 that we're going to be talking about later.
Hmm.
Real quickly, though, I do want to kind of throw to a interview that I got to do. I was approached to interview one of the cast members of this new live action series, Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I actually have not recorded this interview yet, so you're not going to hear it right now. But if you listen to the audio version of this podcast, probably sometime tomorrow when it comes out, I will have edited in this interview that I did with actress Kiriana Crater. She plays the character of KB in Skeleton Crew. And if you watch the trailer that came out, she's the one who has the kind of Geordie LaForge um, goggles on. I think she's almost kind of like a cyborg, like Lobot, maybe. We're going to probably find out more about that. Maybe I'll ask her about that. I don't know what she's going to be allowed to tell me about Skeleton Crew, but you will find out if you're listening to this in audio form later on. Let's go to that interview right now. And that was my interview with actress Kiriana Crater from Star Wars Skeleton Crew. That's going to be coming out starting December 3rd on Disney Plus. Very excited to chat with her all about that show and learn a little bit more about her character KB. And Brooke, you and I are going to be talking a little bit about Skeleton Crew in a bit. First, I want to go through the Star Wars headlines that were not related to D23 from this past week. I wanted to mention that Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures has returned for its second season on Disney Plus and Disney Junior. I watched, I think, the first 10 episodes of this season, and I wrote a review. It's available on laughingplace.com. Brooke, have you seen any of this show, and are you a fan? Are you a part of Nubs Nation?
Oh, totally. I am not I'm not caught up on the latest season, but I have seen many episodes. And I really like it. I think it's a really great cute show. I love getting to see Batu
Yeah,
on screen, which is amazing. And I think having my kids are 8 and 10 now. I really, really wish that this was around when they were
right.
2 and 3. I mean, my son, carried around a little Darth Vader plush from the time he was 1.5. So like this would have been just so up our alley. I love seeing them. And even like, all of the Jedi sort of skills and techniques and everything that they use that are so great for kids, and the whole emotion management component. As Ashley Eckstein does a lot of things like that for kids, her
Yes.
mindful manners segments and everything. So it makes too much sense. I just can't believe it took this long to get it, really.
I absolutely agree. This is a great way for much younger kids to get into Star Wars. It's probably even aimed at a younger audience than like the droids and Ewoks cartoons that were on in the 80s. So um, I hope it's turning on a whole new generation to just the idea of Star Wars. And like you said, they visit Batu, and then the kids get to go and visit Galaxy's Edge and the Disney parks and see Batu for themselves. So that's Young Jedi Adventures. You can watch season 2 now on Disney Plus and on Disney Junior as well. Let's see, in the video game Star Wars Outlaws, which is coming out at the end of this month, just a couple of weeks from now. If you are a Disney Plus subscriber, you can get an exclusive in-game item, which I think it's just like a cosmetic item, they call it. And I think it's just like a rep for, I want to say the character's name is Nyx, that little critter that follows you around in the
Yes.
game. So it's a free exclusive in-game cosmetic item for Star Wars Outlaws if you're a Disney Plus subscriber. Is this game of any interest to you, Brooke?
So I have to say, I mean, yes, it is, because they
Yeah,
look and Fallen Order and Survivor. I mean, the way that they are, part of, and the way that they've worked their way into, you know, this shows now, I feel an obligation to, and so but I'm also not a gamer. Like my
Yeah.
kids literally, I just tried not so long ago to finally start playing, Fallen Order instead of watching it.
Okay.
And like they just, rip the controller out of my hand, because I'm just not good at, I'm so, but I do actually really want to play, but I also get to observe.
Right.
My husband and kids will play them too, so I keep track of the stories. But yeah, Nyx is the cutest little thing I've ever seen. My husband and kids always play all the Zelda, like the open world, all of those different games, and so they've been really excited about this as
Yeah.
being. I think it's right. It's the first Star Wars open world.
That's what they're saying. I do feel
Yeah.
like Jedi Survivor had a lot of open world elements to it
Uh-huh.
as well. And then, there's been like MMO RPGs like Star Wars Galaxies or whatever, which I don't know. I think there's kind of gray blurry lines between like what's considered an open
Uh-huh.
world and what isn't. But yeah, I'm super excited for this game too. It is coming out in a couple weeks for all the current video game platforms. I'm going to be picking that up. Speaking of Nyx though, I did want to mention did you get to see the panel at San Diego Comic-Con where they were talking about Outlaws with Patton Oswalt?
I was not in the panel, but I saw
Okay.
some of what came out of it. Yes.
Yeah, they showed some great behind the scenes footage of the actor. A lot of the stuff, like the cutscenes and things, were motion captured, and Nyx was actually like a puppet that they motion captured on the soundstage. So, as someone who loves puppets, I like watching them do that, and it's cool. It's going to be cool to see how that turned out in the game itself when that comes out in just a little bit. Comic books this week was Star Wars Darth Vader number 49. This is actually the penultimate issue of Star Wars Darth Vader, I think, as a whole, because right now the comic books, the Marvel Star Wars comics, are about to catch up with the events of Return of the Jedi. And if you've seen that film, you know it doesn't end well for Darth Vader. I mean, it does actually end well for him because he gets redeemed, as you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, but he sadly is no more. Unless I guess they go backwards in the timeline, they could fill in some of the other gaps in Vader's story, or they could do Force Ghost Anakin. I don't know. Uh, but I enjoyed this issue written by Greg Pak, and we're building up to the big issue number 50 of both the main Star Wars comic book and the Darth Vader comic, which are coming out in September, and those will wrap up the current arcs of these um, Star Wars comics. Have you read any of the comics? Are you into that at all, Brooke?
So I mean, I have a little bit of background in comic. I actually, for a while worked for a company that
Oh,
made comic books, and I actually worked
neat.
with some of the artists who actually work on some of the Star Wars ones. But the only ones that I've really read are the Galaxy's Edge and
Oh, cool.
Halcyon.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, but I
Ethan
have.
Sachs. Yeah.
Yes. And Will Sliney, I think maybe did
Yes.
some. Yes, both of them I have crossed paths with in a previous job, so that was kind of cool to see their names when I first they first were on these Star Wars
Yeah,
editions.
it's a great time for Star Wars comics right now. So, if anyone out there wants to check out this current run, like I said, it's all kind of culminating and building up to the events of Return of the Jedi. In merchandise news, there's some new Star Wars items available at the Disney Store .com. Used to be called Shop Disney. Now it's Disney Store, the website. You can get Kylo Ren's reforged helmet. And then I saw now they're selling the replica of the Ochi of Bastoon Sith dagger from Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. I hope they sell those in the parks because I love anything that's like a replica of a prop that's not a lightsaber. There's too many lightsabers. So this one jumped out to me. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Rise of Skywalker as a movie, I may have to pick up that Sith dagger replica. So it even has the little finder thing that comes out from the bottom that they
Mhm.
use to like look at the wreckage of the Death Star. Any of this stuff appeal to you as a collector?
I mean, I'd be shocked if we don't see that
Yeah,
at
Doc Ondars.
Docs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see. Of all, I mean, there was a lot that came out. I'm trying to
right.
think of what I was most excited about. The lightsaber. in the cases, the Clone Wars set
Right.
was really, really cool. And then I think that was it a D23 exclusive? The Anakin, like the three different Anakin to Vader
I th-
lightsabers.
I think it might have been, and if there were any extras, I think they did sell out pretty quickly on the Disney store.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really a lightsaber. I more appreciate them than go out and feel like I have
Right.
to buy all of those.
Yeah, me too.
But I thought that those were all really cool. And I mean that Star Speeder, which
Yeah.
that was the thing that I don't know that even did that even make it onto the website?
It did, and then it sold out, like, immediately, yeah,
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Um, Lastly, in Star Wars headlines, before we get into D23 this week, I did wanna mention that I was offered the opportunity to have an exclusive reveal of the new Darth Maul Black Series action figure for Hasbro's Star Wars: The Black Series. This is the 6-inch scale Darth Maul. It's been Darth Maul, the character, has been part of the Black Series before, but this is a new version. Uh, if you went to San Diego Comic-Con, you know that Hasbro was selling a Darth Maul riding on his Sith speeder from the Phantom Menace in honor of the 25th anniversary of that movie. But now they're releasing Maul separately from the Sith speeder, and I think his cloak is a little bit different because it's plastic instead of the cloth that he had in that SDCC exclusive. But you can find out more about this Hasbro Black Series Darth Maul figure at laughingplace.com. And like I said, it was just a huge honor to be able to exclusively reveal that this past Monday morning on Laughing Place. And thank you to Hasbro for reaching out to us about that opportunity. Okay, let's get into our main topic for this week, D23. It's no longer called D23 Expo, so I have to stop myself from saying that every time. It's D23, the ultimate Disney fan experience 2024 at the Anaheim Convention Center. Brooke, let's start out. I want to ask you about your history with this convention. It is kind of a convention, sort of like San Diego Comic-Con, but exclusively about Disney and all of Disney's like subsidiaries, as Disney has kind of acquired all these different properties. You've got Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, what else? 20th Century Studios was represented. So that's all present. They make announcements, they show trailers. There's all sorts of stuff on the exhibit hall floor. But what has been your experience over the years with what was called D23 Expo? Did you start at the very beginning? What was your first expo, I guess, is where we can begin.
My first one was 2019. So I've done
Okay.
2019, 2022, 2024. And
Do you
yeah.
tend to enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean it's tiring, but it's really exciting. I think the the show floor, it's so interesting to go from Comic-Con being so close to this, and just having that comparison, because they really are so different, and this year more different than ever, in terms of the show floor being so like these experiences and
Yeah,
I mean, they're essentially attractions versus, booths.
right.
Even when it's something retail, everyone is kind of leveling up so much. And I was really curious about how that would be this year. Would the show floor be much more compelling, given that the marquee panels are not in that building, and that
Right.
there could be people who would say, well, do I even need to go to the convention center? I can just go to the Honda Center. And I think I think the floor itself did a great job of saying, oh yeah, there's definitely reason to come here and see what's going on.
Yeah, it was an interesting, very different year. Like you said, they took all the big presentations, they moved them over to the Honda Center, which was, you had to get on a shuttle. The shuttle took you all the way down Catella. It was like a 15-20 minute drive to get to the Honda Center. So it did feel like there were two kind of separate things going on at the same weekend. And it sort of took all the energy away from the Anaheim Convention Center and put it over there in the evening, for each night. And then, of course, there was people who didn't go to the Honda Center and got to stick around and experience something and some things that were going on at the ACC. And Of course, there were other panels going on throughout the day there as well. It's a lot of stuff to do. It's the kind of event where you can't possibly do everything, so you just kind of have to pick your priorities and get those done. And I had assignments, I had things that I had to cover. I've been doing this, by the way, since 2015. This was my fifth D23. I think it started about 5 or 6 years before that, so I missed a few of them. And I do always enjoy it. It is really super overwhelming for what both you and I do as our jobs. It's just nonstop barrage of news and announcements, and like I said, trailers. So yeah, still kind of catching my breath from all of this. But what I wanted to get into next was your expectations going into this D23. Let's rewind time a couple months before we knew anything about what we were going to get. Did you have anything that you wanted to see or that you were expecting from the Star Wars or Lucasfilm properties from this event?
Let's see. So before we saw anything, I guess you're saying like before we saw
Yeah.
any sort of panel listings. I have learned recently, I have started to really keep my expectations low with Star Wars announcements and, especially like particularly being such a parks person, between, I think we've seen a big scaling back of Star
Yeah.
Wars in a lot of places that continues to surprise me. The most recent cruise ships, there's no Star Wars on any of them. The and there just haven't been a lot of, there. I can't believe we
Right.
still don't have things like Jedi Training back, or
Yeah.
Galactic Spectacular and stuff like that. So I expect less, and to try to avoid being sad.
Right.
And so I also, knowing that Star Wars Celebration is coming up quite, relatively soon.
Right.
I did expect that that probably they would hold certain things back there. But we got a lot of announcements at last Celebration, so I actually did feel like we might have gotten more updates than we did here, or at
Okay.
least more things touched upon. Um, and then I would say, well, I don't know. What were you hoping before we kind of go into what we got or what we thought we
Okay.
were getting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that I was really hoping for, and this is kind of along the lines of what you were saying, that we didn't get was more Star Wars parks stuff.
Mm.
I think as Galaxy's Edge fans and regulars, we can agree that Galaxy's Edge hasn't quite lived up to its potential. Would you agree with that? Yeah, like I think the land itself is amazing, but they haven't quite populated it, and it's getting better all the time. I think that those little droids, the BDX droids, were great. Every time they add a new character, I think it's wonderful, but I do still think it
Well, you're
needs.
also talking about Disneyland. I'm a Walt
Oh,
Disney
right.
World regular,
Yes.
so we don't get as much at
Right.
Batu East.
Yeah, so we did get a little taste of that, and we'll go into that in a bit. But
Mhm.
yeah, I always, I have these. I'm holding out hope that there is more in the works for Galaxy's Edge, and we do get this little like trickle of new stuff over time. And like you said, it's probably less so for Walt Disney World than it is for Disneyland Resort. But I do want to see more development, more of the immersive promise of Galaxy's Edge, kind of fulfilling that the promise that it had back when they first announced it, back when Scott Trowbridge was saying all that stuff. I'd love to see the bounty hunter character implemented or anything like that. That restaurant, the sit down restaurant. I want to know if these things are like completely off the table, if they're never going to happen,
Yeah.
or if they will eventually announce those things. But it wasn't to be this year. We did get a little bit, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I do want to start now that we get in. Let's get into the actual event itself, and
Uh-huh.
we'll start with the Lucasfilm booth, which was kind of in the central area of the Anaheim Convention Center on the exhibit hall floor. And the Lucasfilm booth itself was mostly taken up by what you would call the volume, which is the hardware, the space that they actually use to shoot Disney Plus live action Star Wars shows like The Mandalorian. And they use that using the software called Stagecraft, which is developed by Industrial Light and Magic, and in conjunction with Jon Favreau and all those guys making The Mandalorian. Really incredible, revolutionary filmmaking technology. And I got to see a really, really cool, like, half-hour presentation about how Stagecraft works on the volume. I have a recorded video of that's up on the Laughing Place YouTube channel right now. Brooke, did you get to see any of this volume or stagecraft demonstrations at D23?
Yes, and I kind of that's what I will just say too that when the panels initially came out, it really looked like Star Wars wasn't really represented at all
Yeah,
within the convention center on the schedule. And then it really wasn't until I was there and realized that they were doing these amazing panels several
yeah,
times a day all weekend. So Doug Chang's presentation I saw about the volume specifically, and he gave just such amazing examples. I mean, I really loved, his message and kind of his examples of like, look at these environments and look at these scenes that we're able to do that push the story forward
yeah,
that we could never do on budget with physical sets. And I also love the way he would point out, and this is where we got busted by fans, or this is where fans are starting to get smart, and
mm,
we have to constantly evolve to stay ahead of fans figuring out, oh, well, now I know where the end, where the screen ends and this begins, or we're doing the same kind of shot too often, so we have to find a new way to do that and re-trick people into believe not finding the screen, or and he's one of my, I mean, he's absolutely
yeah,
amazing. And so that presentation, and just the idea that really if you got people, it was a reservation system, there was some standby, like it
yeah.
was possible to get into most of these, and they were just amazing.
Totally agreed. You got to see Doug Chang, which I'm jealous of, but I was fortunate enough to get to go into the Rob Brito, I think is his name, and he works for Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, as well, and he's one of the lead technicians working on this virtual production on the volume and with Stagecraft. He did a nice half hour. I got to chat with him a little bit afterwards about a couple questions that I had that they weren't quite adding up in my head, and he made it make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I'm super fascinated by this. I think when I first saw that documentary on Disney Plus, the Disney Gallery about the making of The Mandalorian, I thought, well,
Mhm.
this is the future of filmmaking, and we'll be using this for the next 100 years. There's so much untapped potential with it still. And like you said, there's all sorts of different techniques that they can use, and they are kind of still evolving this process as we speak. And it gets better and better with every show and with every movie and every usage of stagecraft. So look into that. You can find the videos on laughingplace.com. Kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of the Star Wars spectrum, they had Nubs from Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures. There's this walk around Nubs character like you would see in a Disney park, except he's never been in a Disney park. They created him. I know he appeared at some other convention in Northern
Yeah.
California,
Yeah.
and I think this is the second time he's ever shown up in public. You can meet Nubs and get your photo taken with Nubs. I was too busy. I had other
I
assignments going on.
know.
I never got to see him. Did you get to see him?
I didn't either because he conflicted with, I was doing something, I was overseeing Simple Plan on the Spotlight like that was that overlapped. And then he was also too close to Legends. He only had two time slots and both times they didn't work, but he is so cute, and
Yeah.
I mean, he needs to be in Animation Courtyard at least, where all the Disney
Yes.
Junior characters are. He is so cute, and I think that would just I can't imagine a kid seeing that character and
Right.
not wanting to go home with one of the, with a Nubs plush and want to watch that show. He's absolutely adorable. Um,
I'm
so yeah, I
shocked.
wish that we had more
Yeah.
chances to see him.
Right. It was at 4 o'clock on Friday and then 4 o'clock on Sunday, and I could
Hmm.
do neither. I'm shocked that they haven't brought Nubs to the parks yet, or
Yeah.
even put him in front of Downtown Disney's Star Wars Trading Post, where they had that Young Jedi Adventures photo op for a while. I think that would make perfect
Mm.
sense. Again, any way to bring more attention to Young Jedi Adventures, that would be great. And like you said, the kids would love it. I got to see another person that folks are big fans of right now on in the Lucasfilm booth during D23. That was Manny Jacinto. I was saying Jacinto and I was wrong.
You know what?
Manny
I looked it up.
Jacinto, I
He
found out is
actually he does
yeah.
say Jacinto also. He does not. Yeah, so he pronounces the J as well.
Oh,
So you were right. Yeah.
oh.
He was
So
introduced that way, but then I
Kristen
went and
Baver
looked
got
and
it wrong.
yeah. I mean, we're not. I wasn't trying to call her out, but I did
Okay.
double check it, and I heard him say
Okay.
he does say Jacinto, so that is correct. And I was
Okay.
there
Well,
too, and very excited.
I will continue saying Manny Jacinto then, and
Mhm.
I will say, yeah, very cool, especially coming out of the Acolyte. Everybody's excited about this character, the Stranger or Chimere, as he was known in his other kind of persona. Did a great job, wonderful performance, and people loved him from The Good Place as well. What did you think of this kind of half-hour discussion in the Lucasfilm booth?
I mean, I like it. I just got goosebumps thinking about it because it was so wonderful. He is wonderful. He's so accessible and seems so genuine and authentic. One of my favorite things that he talked about when she was talking about what was it like to put on the mask,
Yeah,
and they showed some amazing, the evolution of the designs of the mask. I thought was really cool, and they were always using this, the volume as the backdrop for these conversations, which was really a great way too to be showing visuals as well. But I think, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but he said, like, when he said something about, Leslie gave a speech, about how they were keeping the mask so under wraps, and thanked everyone for being so
yeah,
careful to not ruin the secret of this. And and he said, he said he realized the gravity of what he was doing and of that role, and that it was so much bigger than him. And he said, like, the mask is not, because this isn't just my mask, it's not just me wearing it. And then he pointed to fans in the
yes,
crowd and he said, that guy's wearing it, and that guy's wearing it, and that guy's wearing it. And he was just like, anytime we step into this world as an actor and become one of these characters, like, it's not just ours. It's it's for the whole community and for the fans. And he just, like, and we as fans just absolutely love to hear an actor in Star Wars just get it and feel the way
yes.
we do about it. So it was amazing.
He seemed like a really cool guy, and he even stuck around and signed autographs for everyone who got to see that presentation. I couldn't stay for that because I
I
had other
know, me too.
there was a real long line, but it's very cool of him to, I don't know if it's part of his contract or what, but to be able to have the time to give his time to the fans in that way is really cool. And yeah, that concept art that they showed, there were 3 images, and they were all kind of a preview of this book called The Art of Star Wars: The Acolyte, which is coming out and was written by Kristen Baver, who has been on this show before. And yeah, I don't mean to call you out either, Kristen, but you did a great job moderating the interview with Manny Jacinto. Also, in the Lucasfilm booth, we found out, I didn't get to go to this one either, but I know that they released the trailer for Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, which is a new animated mini series coming to Disney Plus. And I think it was in September, or it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I think
And this,
September.
yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. It's sort of like What If, the Marvel animated series, but in Star Wars. And we know these Lego Star Wars animated specials, they're not part of the Star Wars canon. They're not part of the overall like timeline that we know of. So they could kind of have a lot more fun with playing around with these characters and the situations. And it's got Darth Jar Jar and Darkside Ray, and the TIE fighters and X-Wings get mixed up, stuff like that. It looks like a lot of fun. Have you watched that trailer? And if so, what did you think of all this Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy?
Well, we do not ever miss a Lego Star Wars in our house. We love Lego Star Wars. And they always they're really fun. They introduced so many fun things. I mean, we had the Halcyon in
Yes,
Lego form.
right.
I had always hoped that we were going to get that set.
Ah,
And no, I mean, Darth Jar Jar that's all you need.
yeah.
I have my 8-year-old is a total dark sider. He's a total, Vader is his favorite, but he loves Jar Jar, so it was like he's so excited about that. The
Yeah.
other thing I love is those characters that are in like the fall series often make their way into the advent calendar.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we see some, I don't know, I'm hoping that some of those characters in there we end up getting to see around the holidays as well. I don't know. I can't wait to see it. It looks great.
And the other thing that's cool about this Rebuild the Galaxy miniseries is that they've already released these Lego sets that are tied into that, where you can get Darth Jar Jar in a Lego minifigure form, or Darkseid Ray, and all these other. There's a few original characters in there too. Once played by Bobby Moynihan. So Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy is going to be available on your Disney Plus, and then you can get the toys to tie in with that as well. I don't remember the date, but it's coming up. It's coming up within the next couple months for sure. Was there anything else that you saw in the Lucasfilm booth proper before we move on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think two more things to mention.
Okay.
One that was really cool, just for guests, was that you could queue and you would get to go in between the panels. They would
Yes.
have a droid or a couple stormtroopers or something, and then they would put a backdrop scene from one like a set. You'd be inside a Star Destroyer, or you'd have a city backdrop from Obi-Wan, or and then you could actually go and do a 10-second clip,
Right.
and they would film
Mhm.
it, and then they would email it to you. I didn't get mine, I think, because maybe my media badge was not properly linked or
Ah,
something. I don't know, I'm still hoping to track that down, but I've seen a lot of other people's, and that was just an amazing,
yeah.
cool, forever souvenir to have. And then the one other panel that I did, and I know there were a couple different ones, but was legacy effects. And they went through the whole process of building Huyang, and taking
Oh,
Huyang
neat.
from animation to live action. And he was, some part puppet, part,
Yeah.
and then some digital as well. And then I think they also did another one that I didn't get to see, with the Loth Cat from Ahsoka, and which was actually on display
Yes.
in front of the queue there as well. So, and I think Queel maybe there may have been also a legacy effects panel and then he was on display as
Yes.
well.
Okay.
So yeah, so there it was a really robust and varied lineup
Yeah.
of things that they were doing in there. Everything from the digital and the screen stuff, to the effects, to star power. So it way exceeded my expectations,
Yeah.
in terms of what was on offer there that I didn't realize.
I gotta see if somebody has video of the other ones, because I want to watch that Hu Yang one for sure.
Yeah.
As a fan of puppets, I want to see how they put that
Oh yeah, it
together.
was amazing, and learning about how they did his eyes, and
Yeah.
how Dave, obviously that character is so important to
Right.
him, and that character has such a long history. It's like the oldest character in
Yes.
so it was a great one.
He's the only one who's gonna be around for, like, the entire timeline, basically,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then the photo op thing, the video op, I should say, I did get to do that, and you can see mine on my Instagram. But yeah, that was fun. It just kind of feels like you stepped into the Star Wars galaxy for a second. So, pretty cool to have been on the volume and have, the stagecraft thing moving around you. So check that out. Let's pivot to something that I saw. I think it was your video that I saw from the media preview, which was Thursday night. And I didn't get to go to that. Ordinarily I would, but my boss took the invite, and he's got the seniority. So he went to the media preview. I was looking at everybody's social media posts coming out of that, and your video of the skeleton crew characters and costumes display that they had. It wasn't in the Lucasfilm booth. It was next door or a couple booths away in the Disney Plus booth. But that thing got me so jazzed for Skeleton Crew. They had like 4 different pirate characters. One of them was Vane from The
Yep.
Mandalorian. And then there were
Hmm.
3 new pirates. One was a droid. One was a Shistavanen werewolf guy. And then what was the other species? I don't even remember. But Yeah, they were all there lined up. The costumes are so cool. I love pirates. I love Star Wars. So this is right up my alley. Let's talk about the Skeleton Crew. I guess first of all, how excited are you right now coming out of D23 about this show?
I could not be more excited.
Yeah.
I mean, I have loved Jude Law for my entire life too. So getting Jude Law,
Yeah,
as a Jedi or whatever he is,
right.
I don't want to just straight up say he's a Jedi, but like I think he is.
The kids
Um,
think he's a Jedi, but I don't
yeah,
know if
we'll
that's accurate.
see.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, just this over and over again, the whole Goonies, Stranger
Yes.
Things kind of comparison
Yeah.
of, from the kid's point of view and Jude Law, the way that he presented it, coming out there, and just he was just another one of these actors who was like, I am so grateful to be a part of this. I love, he said, I started watching Star Wars when I was 10. I love
Yes.
being a part of this show that's from the perspective of these kids around that age. Um, the thing that I was just so taken by is the trailer and these kind of new ways of looking at Star Wars, which we got a lot of, I think, in Andor. This like real life daily grind
Right.
kind of in Star Wars in a more urban setting rather than, a moisture farming setting.
Yeah.
And so Star Wars Suburbia, like
Yes.
that was
And a
wild. We
Star
got a
Wars
shot of
school
that.
bus.
A Star Wars school bus, yeah. And I tweeted this, but I when I talked to Doug Chang about Galactic Star Cruiser, and he was describing how, he said the way that you make things believable in Star Wars is you start with something that people know and can relate to in their
Mm.
regular life, and then you add a veneer of Star Wars to it.
Yeah.
And so I immediately thought of that quote when I saw that school bus, when I saw those two, like the cut in half seats that are in the back,
Yeah.
and like the texture of the seats, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I could see that school bus. That looks like a real school bus, but it's also not at all like a real school bus. It's Star
Right.
Wars, and there's an RX droid was the bus driver, I think, right?
I
I
didn't
think,
notice that, but I gotta go back and
yeah,
check it out again.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I just absolutely loved from that trailer, but those details, that's just going to
Yeah.
be so much fun to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Goonies, and of course, this is one of my favorite movies growing up. And there's that one shot of like the skeleton falling down
Yep.
in a frame, which looks very Goonies to me. So people have compared it to the Explorers as well, which is another '80s kid movie, and all these, they keep using the term Amblin. They mentioned ET. So I think if you know the spirit of these, a little bit darker, when kids movies were a bit darker in the '80s, that's about what you're gonna get from Skeleton Crew when that starts on December 3rd. And yeah, like you, I am super psyched for this show. We've got a few months to wait for that, but there's other stuff coming up in between. And then later on in the spring of next year, I think we're getting Star Wars Andor season 2. And yeah, you mentioned Jude Law, who came out to introduce the teaser trailer for Skeleton Crew at the Disney Entertainment presentation. And for Andor, it was actually Diego Luna who plays Cassian Andor. And then he introduced some footage from season 2 of Andor. I think this was very different from what they showed back at Star Wars Celebration in London. This footage actually revealed that confirmed that this stuff had been rumored before. And I think we all kind of guessed that Alan Tudyk would be back as K2SO. First of all, he was standing with Cassian Diego Luna at D23 years ago when they first announced the show. So we knew he was eventually going to pop up. But also it confirmed that Ben Mendelsohn will be returning as Orson Krennic, which kind of came out through Variety and the trade publications a little while ago. I'm super psyched for this show as well. I think you mentioned Andor was one of your favorite Star Wars shows. What did you think about the presentation for Andor at D23?
Oh, I mean, I was really excited about it. You're right. It did feel like the footage was quite different.
Yeah.
There was a lot of K2SO in that. Like we saw,
Yes.
I mean, so it seems like he will be quite prominent, which I absolutely, I mean, that will be a highlight for sure because what a
Yes.
great character. I'm trying to think of what else we saw. We saw some. we see Rebel pilot?
It's hard to keep it all in your
Um,
mind, especially
I
if you
know,
don't
especially
have
because of
like
the three. Yeah, I
yeah,
think we saw pilots, and I think we might have seen the Yavin. Or am I
maybe.
mixing it up? No, no, I might be mixing it up with Mandalorian now.
You're
Um,
right.
yeah, I
I'm
can't
not
even.
to
Yeah,
be
they're
honest,
all
I don't go hunt for like bootleg people shooting it off the screen.
no,
I
nor
try to
do
keep it in
I.
my head from what we
Same.
saw there. So yeah, I
It
don't
keeps it
remember all the
special. Yeah.
details. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like kind of furiously like, make a few notes during while
Yes.
we're in there and then but regardless, it's going to I think it will
Yeah.
really deliver. It looks amazing. Oh, we did
It's
see a lot of did we see Cyril back
yeah, Zero
and
Karn. Yep.
Dedra and everybody,
Yeah.
so we will continue on with those stories as well, which I think will be really interesting.
All our favorites are coming back. I do have a question about how K2SO is gonna fit into the tone of this show because Andor is kind of dead serious and K2 is a very funny character. So it's I don't know. There's not a ton of humor in the first season of Andor. I think actually like Cyril's mom is the one exception I can think of who's
Yeah,
kind of a
there's like
funny
almost
character. But
no comic
other
relief
than that, I
moments.
don't like I'm having trouble. Yeah. So I'm sure they'll pull it off. I'm very curious how they're going to do it, and I'm looking forward to it for sure. And we think that's coming in the spring of next year, I believe. Something that's a bit further off is going to be the Mandalorian and Grogu movie directed by Jon Favreau, but they did come out. Dave Filoni joined Jon Favreau on stage during that Disney Entertainment presentation, and they talked a little bit about how production has already started for a few weeks, and they went right back to shooting again this past Monday, and they showed a little bit of footage of that as well. From what you recall, Brooke, what did you think of Mandalorian and Grogu, or what we got to see of it?
Well, we saw Zeb, didn't we?
Yes,
That
Zeb.
was exciting.
Yeah,
Um,
and snow troopers, as Kevin Feige put it.
yeah, yeah, snow troopers and well, obviously a snow planet,
Yeah,
and AT-ATs and we saw Mando and Grogu piloting an AT-RT, I think.
right.
And yeah, we saw some cool stuff for sure. I can't wait.
I can't
It,
wait either. Yeah,
yeah,
it's going to be the first Star Wars movie on the big screen since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. So it will have been kind of like 6.5 years, I think, between movies, which is a sizable gap considering we were getting one a year for a while. But yeah, very excited for this as it continues to shape up. And like I said, they are in production right now. It's coming out in May of 2026. But we also got a little bit of a hint of something else related to The Mandalorian and Grogu. And this is when Dave Filoni came out during the Parks presentation to talk about Star Wars in Fortnite, which we'll mention in a second. But he talked about a new mission coming to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which is something that I've been wondering about that ride since it first opened. Are they ever going to cycle out different missions? So the answer is yes. This one is going to star the Mandalorian and Grogu somehow. Now, you're friends with Nick Tierce. You know Nick Tierce, don't you? Yeah.
yes.
Nick is not happy about this because
Nick
he's
is despondent.
yes. Our pal Nick is committed to the idea that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge should remain in its point in the timeline, which is set between episodes 8 and 9. Obviously, the Mandalorian and Grogu takes place between episodes 6 and 7, so it doesn't quite match up. I don't know. How do you feel about this, Brooke? How do you feel about Mandalorian and Grogu coming to Smuggler's Run?
Well, I think we need more information.
Yeah,
I mean, first of all, I mean, Nick has a much longer history and, involvement in immersive entertainment and really completely committing to that. But doing Galactic Star Cruiser as many times as I did, I'm certainly an adopter of it, and I have
yeah,
loved that. And I'm so bummed when I'm walking around Galaxy's Edge and, you say Bright Suns to someone and they don't say it back.
Uh,
So, or you go to, or you say something in story and, you get a response
yeah,
like, what are you talking about? So I very much appreciate the disappointment about a timeline shakeup. What's interesting to me is when Scott Trowbridge announced the characters coming, he within the same
right,
announcement explained, just like he said, these characters, they're not in this timeline, so they won't interact with characters not appropriate to their timeline. And they
right.
sort of just kind of like float in the out in the distance, and that's how they sorted out, Ahsoka and Sabine and all that. Um, but we didn't get that explanation. I have asked.
Okay.
We'll see if or when that happens. But I don't know. I mean, do we still have a Hondo pre-show? Do
Mm,
we? Is it cycling in and out, or is this a total? Or is it kind of a sunsetting of the last one and a replacement of this one? And maybe
right.
maybe it's like, is it like Soren where
Yeah.
it comes back every once in a while? It obviously this one doesn't work with Rise. It doesn't work with Kylo in the First Order show that's happening, nearby, in terms of timeline. So is the timeline gone? If
Yeah.
and there are a lot of questions too about what's happened. For example, at Walt Disney World, there's speculation. Is something replacing Launch Bay? In which case,
Mm,
do we need a place for Darth Vader to be? And then is it maybe just
yeah.
maybe that will change? I don't know. So I think right now the takeaway is, yay, something new
Yeah.
for an attraction in the Disney parks. I will never ever be unhappy about that. I'm sorry, Nick. Um, I'm, I mean, we're always happy to see them keep doing new things.
Yes.
And so that's my main enthusiastic takeaway. And then I think I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're going to do.
Me too. And I think I would like to see them continue to add new missions, and kind of do it in the way they do Star Tours, where it's randomized ultimately. If we get a new one every year or every couple years and they keep building on that, I would be going on Smuggler's Run more often than I do right now, which is almost never. So, um, yeah, I'm not opposed to it in general. I understand and I appreciate where people are coming from, and I definitely respect someone like Nick's take on this. But I think what Nick wants, and I think if I could flip a switch and place my vote or whatever, I would want the full commitment to the timeline and to the immersion, and have Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire Outpost populated with all those characters that were promised from the beginning, like the bounty hunter I mentioned earlier, and bring them all out. Have it like Ghost Town alive at Knott's Berry Farm. I think that would be fantastic. I think we are steadily getting away further and further away from that idea, sadly.
Yeah.
And if Disney parks and Imagineering are going to kind of drift away from that idea, I'd rather have more new stuff that if it's not going to fit in with it, I can be okay with stuff that's not going to fit in with it. That's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, like you said, a lot of unanswered questions about this right now, and hopefully we'll find out more as the years go by, because this is not going to happen right away. They showed a little bit of concept art, and that was it for this new Smuggler's Run mission. Hopefully, more information before too long. The other thing that came out of that Parks presentation regarding Star Wars was all about Fortnite. Fortnite, which is a video game I have never played. I do know they're bringing new Star Wars content to that game, but to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about it. Do you know more than I do about this, Brooke?
I mean, all I know is that I don't know a lot about it,
Okay.
but my son plays it, and I know that you can be different characters. Like I know he's
Yeah.
been Ahsoka, and like Star Wars has been in Fortnite for a long time. I think it was newer to bring the other announcements were a bigger deal to bring in the Incredibles and some of the other ones that they added. So I think it was like more of a little addition for Star Wars this time around. They're always getting new characters or new outfits or new weapons
Yeah.
or things like that. But yeah, so I don't have a lot to add there.
Yeah, me neither. And I'll just say, like, if you are a Fortnite gamer and you enjoy that game and you are a Disney fan, of any of these properties, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, the Incredibles, like you said, Pixar's starting to come into it. You certainly have a lot to choose from as far as like the different characters you can play as. And there was a whole segment dedicated to that during the park's presentation. They even, I think they broadcast it live into Fortnite. Like you can watch it from the game, that part of the presentation. So that's cool. I do want to mention something that's not Star Wars related, but it is Lucasfilm related. So this is the Indiana Jones attraction coming to Disney's Animal Kingdom down there at Walt Disney World. It's replacing the dinosaur attraction, which is the same ride system as what we have here for Indiana Jones Adventure at Disneyland, Temple of the Forbidden Eye, but it's not going to have the same story, which I was surprised to hear. I thought they were just going to make a copy of what we have here. Glad that they're doing it differently. It will probably be more appealing for people who are regulars at Disneyland then to go down and check it out at Walt Disney World when that opens up. What did you think of what we found out about this new Indiana Jones attraction at Walt Disney World?
This is my number one
Yeah.
parks announcement I'm most excited about.
Okay.
And I overall think that this land, Tropical Americas, looks the most exciting, really, of everything that they've announced. And I love that they compared it to Harambe in
Mm,
Animal Kingdom in terms of just the look and the feel and the lived in, really the atmosphere of the whole area. And I mean, Indiana Jones Adventure is one of the best rides, and everything, but in the details, the queue,
yeah.
all of that. And so I think when you get an indie attraction too, you get so many extra parks fans, and and Star Wars, Lucasfilm fans. Get a lot of extra stuff out of it too,
Yes.
because you get all of these extra layers of Society of Explorers and Adventurers.
Right.
There's a connection there with, because Jock Lindsay was a member, so like the Jock Lindsay's hangar bar at Disney Springs is connected,
Yeah.
and you and then there's a connection to Jungle Cruise and Skipper Canteen and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really interesting interweaving of Disney parks lore anytime you get an indie attraction, or space of any sorts. I don't know, maybe we might even get a little something attached to the dining, or but I think it looks wonderful. I don't think we know much about the attraction. It's basically a Maya temple that's been well preserved, and there's rumor of a mythical creature, I think, that
Right.
lives in the depths.
I
And
think this is where we get the animal connection, right?
yeah, and he, and you're coming on, you're joining Indy on this sort of expedition to go find it. Um,
And they showed a couple new pieces of concept art for that as well, including one with the familiar Jeep that we know from, I mean, it's the same ride vehicle basically that was used in Dinosaur is in the Indy ride here. It will be there. Same track layout, like I said, different story, different decor, different animatronics and effects, I'm sure. Very curious to see how that shapes up over the years. Again, it's not going to happen right away. We're going to have to wait a bit for that, but I'm excited for it as well as a big Indiana Jones fan and as a fan of the parks and Animal Kingdom, especially. Dinosaur never really did it for me, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about that ride, but it just always felt like an inferior version of that an inferior use of that ride system. So
Same.
pivoting from that into the Disney Legends ceremony, there were three uh, honorees, recipients of the Disney Legends Award, who were Lucasfilm related, and those were Harrison Ford, who of course we best know as Han Solo and Indiana Jones, Frank Oz, who is a brilliant puppeteer for the Muppets and director of many great films, and also performed Yoda in a number of Star Wars projects. And John Williams, who, if you have to list the people who contributed the most to Star Wars over the years, he might be number two after George Lucas. John Williams
Mm.
created the music that we all know and love from the Star Wars series. Brooke, did you get to see this ceremony? And if so, did you have any thoughts about these three Lucasfilm related recipients of the Disney Legends Award.
Yes, I did see it, and I loved having Harrison Ford be the first and, John Williams be the last, sort of bookending it,
Yeah,
with Frank Oz kind of right in the middle, and they went really heavy on Yoda for Frank Oz's,
yeah,
video segment, really
mhm,
heavy on it, in a really beautiful way, like, kind of at the beginning and the end of his, video, and yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford gave a really emotional speech. Seemed,
yeah,
really genuinely honored by the award. John Williams was not there,
yeah.
which was really sad. I hope that he's okay.
Me too.
Um,
Just to interrupt you there really
yeah,
quickly,
no,
I'm a
please.
little concerned
Yeah.
about John Williams because he had to cancel also his Hollywood Bowl shows this year,
Hmm.
which is this annual event that everybody in LA gets excited for and they go to
Hmm.
watch John Williams conduct his own music at the bowl. And he wasn't well enough to go to that and he didn't show up. And I was a little surprised that he didn't even get like send in a video
I
message or
know.
anything. Like
Yeah.
it makes me a little concerned as a huge fan of his work. I'm I hope he's okay, and I guess our best wishes go out to John Williams, however he's doing. So go ahead and continue there, Brooke. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that I mean, they still did. It was amazing.
Yeah,
Obviously, he has been a legend for a long time. Um, I love the quote about, the composer of the soundtrack of our
yeah,
lives,
yeah.
um, and they and his performance was it just Star Wars? They had, the Pacific Symphony
I,
play. I can't remember if they played indie music or not.
I actually don't
Um
recall, but I have it on video as well,
I
and you
think
can
they might.
watch
I
it
think
on the
they
Last
actually. I think
Choices.
they did, but they brought out,
Yeah,
25 or so stormtroopers during Imperial March, which
yes.
was very. So the spectacle of it as a finale to that show was perfect and wonderful, and obviously, everyone was honoring John Williams even when he wasn't there. By there's no better way than to perform his music. So I thought it was awesome.
And we should mention that Harrison Ford came back out to present John Williams with his Disney
Yeah.
Legend Award alongside Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. Frank Oz received his from Pete Docter from Pixar, and Harrison received his from Disney CEO Bob Iger. So they all got, you know, big, very warm receptions from the crowd in that arena as well. It was great to see them, and you could find video again of all those moments from the Disney Legends ceremony on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. Very quickly, I want to go over some merchandise that I bought. I want to just bring up this comment from earlier from Skywalking Through Neverland. Have you had time to sit down and listen to that amazing Indiana Jones compilation soundtrack yet? So, speaking of John Williams, at the Disney Music Emporium booth, they were selling. It got announced a month or two ago, but they had the big Indiana Jones score box set. It's a 10 disc vinyl set of all 5 movies, every note of the John Williams score from all of the Indiana Jones films. And yeah, I've listened to the original trilogy so far, and I think half of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it's just an amazing, beautiful set, and it sounds really, really wonderful. And earlier, Justin in the comments talked about the Star Speeder. We should talk about that momentarily. That was also $300, by the way. Indiana Jones vinyl box set was 300. The Star Speeder was 300. I didn't get my hands on that, sadly, but I know that was a hot item. Anything that you picked up, Brooke, that you would like to mention, merchandise wise from the event?
Oh, I mean, the Star Speeder was so cool,
Yeah,
and everybody kind of freaked out about it, when we saw it initially online, and then it really was that cool. It was
yeah.
huge though. And traveling to Chicago, I was like, "Oh, do I really need this? Where am I gonna put?" And I don't know. I think I already regret not getting it because I love
uh,
Star Tours and oh my gosh. And then again, our friend Nick Tierson, he
yes.
he was home and had already put somebody in every single one of those seats, and it was so cute.
Yeah,
And
he had the Steven Spielberg action figure sitting in the front row.
oh my
Uh,
gosh,
yeah, that
yeah.
was great. And the toy actually plays on the screen in the Star Speeder, it plays through, I believe it's the entire original Star Tours attraction, right?
Yep, it is. Yep, with audio. And there's a button, and the lights go on, and you hear the chime. And Rex's original, the audio and everything is in there. So it's a very, very cool. Like I really, and the size of it, and then you also got two different versions of the Rex
Oh,
figure as well. I
oh, I
think
didn't
you
know
got a
that.
carded one
Oh,
separately in the package, in addition to that you didn't
wow.
need to open, in addition to the other one.
That's
Um,
fairly generous. I'm surprised.
yeah, truly, and discounts applied too. There were AP
Yeah.
discounts and everything on that. So, oh man, I'm just the regrets building as I talk
Yeah,
about
I
it.
kinda regret not getting that as well, but after dropping 300 on the records, I was like, "I don't know if I can justify it." And I was
Yeah.
kinda hoping that that would survive long enough to pop up in the parks, and I would just try to save up and
Mm,
buy it there, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna happen. That might be an
mm.
eBay type thing later later on.
I will say
Hopefully
though, one
yeah,
thing to kind of give a shout out to about merch at the expo, it was, that they did that 4 a.m. virtual queue and then a second one, and everybody was pretty stressed and angsty about it. But at least in the main D23 marketplace,
yeah,
I mean, I went on, I think on the third day even still, and they really kept most things around
yeah.
and in stock throughout the event at least. So I thought that that's like a really nice thing to know for guests for the future, that, the shopping is not, it's not a bloodbath, to get your hands on that Star Speeder on day one or anything like that. Like it was still
Okay.
around on the third day there
If
at least.
So if you wanted it, you could probably get your hands on it, and you were
Yeah.
if you wanted it and you could afford it and wanted to pay for it, I guess.
Yeah.
I know they also had, like, a teak plush from the Ewok movie, from the TV movie,
I
like,
got it. Yep.
you got that one?
Yeah,
Okay,
I did. I
that's
did.
cool. I missed
Yep.
out on that too, but yeah, some cool Star Wars stuff that they had at
And some
D23.
blind boxes of Ewoks too. There
Oh,
were these
okay.
little blind boxes, and there were 6 different, Ewoks, so I
Oh,
grabbed a
neat.
couple of those for my kiddos to open them, and so that was fun too.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds cool too. Alright. Is there anything else from D23 that was Star Wars or Lucasfilm related that we haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about? And if not, how did you feel in general about the presence of Star Wars and Lucasfilm at this year's event?
So no, I think we covered everything honestly because it was not that much.
Yeah,
I was, like I said, the booth, the Lucasfilm Pavilion absolutely exceeded my expectations and so delivered there. So I actually
right.
really felt like I wouldn't have had any time to do any more during this event than what was there, and I loved it. So A plus there. Uh and then I mean, but I certainly would have liked
Yeah, me
more
too.
parks representation, but these were really big announcements across the board.
Right.
They didn't talk about hotels, they didn't talk about restaurants or entertainment, really at all, not just Star Wars, for anything. So, it's possible that there are some other things coming I'm gonna be hopeful for that, like, really they just didn't even have time to touch,
Yeah.
in this big 30,000-foot sort of high level,
Yeah.
discussion.
And like you said, we've got Star Wars Celebration in April of next year,
Exactly.
so less than a year by a few months coming up, and that will be, of course, 100% focused on Star Wars. Looking forward to that. Really quickly, I want to ask you this question from the comments from Fancy Sauce. Thoughts on a whole new sound? This is a
Yes.
cover album of Disney songs, not Star Wars related at all.
Yeah.
Cover album of Disney songs. How would you describe the genre of the music? Is it
They're
emo or
calling
punk
it
or
they're calling it pop punk.
pop punk? Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
we saw one of these songs performed during the parks presentation. It was the band Plain White Tees performed Surface Pressure from the movie
mhm,
Encanto by
mhm.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I got a kick out of that one. I
I
enjoyed
thought it
it.
was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's representative of the album, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. How about you, Brooke?
Well, Simple Plan also performed another one of the songs from the
Okay.
album at on the spotlight stage.
Okay.
They did "Can You Feel the Love Tonight." And that was great too. And honestly a highlight for me of the entire event was that they just had this 30-minute concert that everybody could go to, and the
Yeah.
crowd was amazing. Everybody knew all the words. It was so much fun. They announced the full album track list today,
Okay.
and all the bands that are on it. I am most excited about Yellow Card, and they are doing A Whole New World.
Nice.
And I'm actually getting in the car and driving 5 hours with my son tomorrow. My 8-year-old is a very big Yellow Card fan. We're going to see them
Oh,
in
great.
Wisconsin tomorrow, or
Sweet.
Saturday. And no, but the album looks really good. They're really fun, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's cool that we do this. There's quite a few of those bands that we've seen and will continue to see on the stage at Epcot. Eat to the Beat. Yellow Card is there this year, and I think a
Cool.
couple of the other ones too. So yeah, it's fun.
Sweet. When is that coming out? Do you know? Did they
The
give
album,
it? Yeah.
September 6th.
Okay. So not too long, just a few weeks for that. Awesome. That's the end of our discussion of D23. Let's get into our final segment here on Who's the Bossk. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. This is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is a movie called Alien Romulus. It's the latest in a long-running franchise of sci-fi horror movies. I love the first two, Alien by Ridley Scott and Aliens by James Cameron. This one is kind of a return to form. It's more of a horror movie than the previous two movies that came out that were Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And yeah, it's very scary. I think my only complaint about it would be there's too much like fan service in this movie. There's a few too many like references to alien movies past. And there's one line in particular, one line of dialogue that if they would cut it out, it would improve my opinion of this movie by like a full letter grade. But overall, I had a good time with it. I thought it was well made, and I think fans of this franchise are going to enjoy it. How about you, Brooke? Anything that you've been watching, reading, playing lately that you would like to talk about that's not Star Wars?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there hasn't been time to do much lately, has
That's
there?
true. True.
Right now I am trying to get caught up on The Bear, which is
Okay.
one of my favorite. That's a favorite for me. Set in Chicago,
Yeah.
amazing music incorporated. So I am on the new season of that, and that was represented. I didn't even get in there. There was so much I didn't even
Yeah.
see. But there was some sort of a bear photo op activation, I think, on the show floor as well at D23. I missed out on that, but and then I mean, looking ahead, I'm really excited about Agatha All Along.
Yeah.
It's coming out in September, just in time for Halloween, and also this time of year, our other like most favorite fandom is Nightmare Before Christmas. So
Okay.
we're about to flip the switch on that, around the house. I have the 13-foot Home Depot Jack Skellington in my living.
Nice.
I put him up in my living room. And
You're
so
gonna
he will
get
be
that.
back.
They just announced that Lego set. Did you see that?
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I desperately, yes. So that's something I desperately want. That's a must. And yeah, so that's about all for now.
Very cool. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. Huge, huge thank you to my guest this week. First of all, Kiriana Crowder. I'm probably not saying that right. She's an actress. She's in Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Thank you for sitting down with me and chatting about the new character KB coming up in that show. And then you, first of all, Brooke, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very, very busy post D23 week to come and chat with me about everything Star Wars and Lucasfilm coming out of the event. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I mean, of course, we love talking about this stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the easiest part. That's the easiest part of what we do, right?
Talking about it is a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
running around like crazy people at the convention can be a little exhausting. Brooke, where would you like to send people if you want people to find you on the internet somewhere?
Oh yeah, I'm on just on Threads, Instagram, Twitter, all the same at Brooke G McDonald. That's Brooke with an E. G
Excellent.
McDonald.
Yeah, and you post a lot of fun stuff. I always enjoy your social media content for sure. Next time on Who's the Bossk, I actually have no idea what the next episode is going to be. We have a bit of a gap before more Star Wars content. I will definitely do an episode about Outlaws, when that probably after that comes out, after I've had a chance to play it for a bit. So that's for sure coming up within the next month or so. But between now and then, I'm not sure. Otherwise, for now, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. I'm on Instagram at Who's the Bossk Pod. Thank you to everyone who watched live and commented along. And thank you out there if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast later on. My name is Mike Celestino. Thanks again. May the force be with you, and see you real soon. Bye.